All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We're almost in the afternoon space, so I'm just going to start there. Pleasure to have everyone here. Pleasure to be here with you three today. So we heard earlier around, our youth that were out here. Social media kind of looks different for everyone. We also heard that there's value around having adults being present, being there, and really listening. And I think it's just as important from hearing from the youth, it's important to hear from the adults and the allies that are in their space, especially as we talk about a challenging topic like cyberbullying or online hate or meanness. So I want to bring these three important people up to the roof. If you can share a little bit about who you are in your work. First, Laura.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Erickson-Schroth. I am the Chief Medical Officer at the JED Foundation, which is a national nonprofit that protects emotional health and prevents suicide in teens and young adults. And I also work at Hedrick Martin Institute here in New York, which is an LGBTQ youth organization.
Great. And Kishana.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Kishana Gray. I'm a full professor now at the University of Kentucky, actually transitioning to the University of Michigan this fall. Yay, me. But I study online gaming, online communities, look at the experiences of young folks of color, marginalized and vulnerable populations in gaming spaces.
Excellent. And then Devin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Devin Moore. I am the founder of an anti-bullying organization called Race to Speak Up. So we go into schools and give workshops about bullying prevention. Beyond that, I'm the author of Devin Speaks Up, which is a children's anti-bullying book, and I'm currently a student at the University of Maryland.
All right. So let's start off by just kind of defining, when we talk about cyberbullying, what is it and what are really the biggest differences now from maybe cyberbullying in its first inception that we've heard of it, and just kind of what are the effects and the differences between bullying and meanness versus cyberbullying or online meanness?
Yeah. So I think what's important to talk about is the difference between cyberbullying and sort of what we'd think of as traditional bullying. And one of those is that cyberbullying doesn't take a vacation. Right, and I heard a lot of people saying I'm Gen X. I'm actually an Xennial, so I'm like right on the cusp in between Gen X and millennials. Have you heard that?
Same.
Yeah, you too. And so I remember, going home from high school, and when I was home. Like there were landlines, but there was no way anyone could reach me outside of school, and I didn't get my first cell phone until college. But now, bullying can really follow young people home, anytime, anywhere they are, literally on vacation, somewhere else, on every single form of media that you can reach someone. So that's one thing that's really different. It can be anonymous, right?
Yeah.
In the past, you knew who the person was who was bullying you. Now you don't necessarily know. It can also reach many more people than it could reach. So, it could go viral, a video of you being bullied. And also I think it can fly under the radar of adults, of parents and caregivers and teachers, because you don't necessarily know, bullying could always be secretive in the past, in bathrooms or passing notes or things like that, but it's so much easier to be secretive now and for adults to miss it. I think those are really the key differences.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. And I think the reality is these aren't just like stories that we hear. These happen to real people, and in many cases, children in our lives. Devin, I think you have a particular story that helped to kind of fuel, like, why you're doing the work you're doing today. Can you share a little bit more about that work, please?
Yeah, of course, I definitely can. So when I was 14 years old, I went through a lot of bullying. It was cyberbullying, it was physical bullying, it was verbal, and it was racist bullying at that. And it was definitely a hard thing to go through. There was a lot of horrible impacts. I went through anxiety, depression. There was a lot that I was going through at that time. But beyond that, I would go on the news and I would see students, kids, such young ages were unaliving themselves. They were committing suicide because they felt that there was no way out of bullying. Or they was going back to school to get back at their tormentors. So they was going back to school with a weapon. And to that, I said no. So I decided I needed to do something. I wanted to be a part of the positive change that puts an end to bullying. So that led to me founding Race to Speak Up. That also led to me going into different schools, different organizations, and giving my Race to Speak Up Against Bullying workshops. So we're giving students the tools, the resources, and the proper education to learn about things like cyberbullying, verbal, physical, social bullying. I've spoken in front of thousands of students to really further this anti-bullying education.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, one, and thank you for the work especially. because technology is moving at such a rapid, pace, and space in terms of where this is being prevalent, one of the areas that we continue to see increasing kind of time being spent is just through gaming and video games. So, Kishana, I would love if you can share a little bit about how does cyberbullying kind of make its way into kind of that gaming space, and it can be hard to recognize at times, especially if you've got that child that might just be like connected in their room and like you can't hear everything else that's happening.
Right.
Tell us what makes that space different and what parents, should maybe start keeping an eye out for.
Absolutely. Gaming is a tough space because I think it's a space that parents and guardians don't really understand. Like social media, sure, you can see, we can log into accounts, we can see those accounts, the phones, we can pick up a phone, we can see, but the gaming space is really interesting. It has an interesting architecture, because first cyberbullying can happen, in text chat. It can happen in voice chat, and the voice chat is very unregulated. There aren't a lot of companies that can, really regulate and monitor, a lot of the voice chat. But then gaming is so expansive now. We have streaming cultures, and then there's like this convergence like with gaming and social media. So then there's like this amplification effect of then what happens to you, and gaming can go into the social media space, which is what we saw during Gamergate. I'm not sure if folks, remember or know like of Gamergate, but basically that was the hypervisibility of, a lot of women, femme-presenting people, vulnerable populations, and they were hypervisible like in the social media space, and those things permeated like in gaming, and people just didn't really know what to do inside those spaces. So I think, a lot of our parents and guardians and people who are invested in young folks' lives, they need to get a sense of the architecture of the space. You have to have a relationship, ask questions, but not like interrogation kinds of questions. I think we should ask like curious questions. What's that game you're playing? Who are your friends? Can I play with you and hang with you? I was listening to some of the panels earlier, and there's like just this space, like this, people, we aren't together. And I think when we build those relationships again, we rebuild them with our young folks, then we can have more of an interventions, and we can be engaged because we know what's happening in that space. But gaming's a tough one.
Yeah, gaming, it sounds tough. I think, one of the things to really kind of be thoughtful of for parents especially is how do we identify, when this might be happening? Because in gaming, especially if it's happening through text or even through that headset, if they're doing that. Laura, what are some things or some warning signs that parents should potentially be looking for if they think that their child might be kind of involved in bullying or being bullied themselves? How does that translate into a space where a parent can say, let me check into this. Like, what should they look out for?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think it's a very common question. How do I recognize, when something's going on with my child? So I always say, your kid, right? Or the young people in your life. And so it's looking for change, right? So I could list off symptoms, there are sort of general symptoms, right? You notice that the young person's mood has changed significantly. They're not wanting to go to school, they're withdrawing from activities, things like that. There are more specific symptoms, when it comes to cyberbullying. So, they may be deleting and then re-downloading apps. They may be secretive about their phone, things like that. But it's really knowing your own kid. And I always like to say, you don't have to be a professional, and actually sometimes it's better not to be a professional, right? Yeah. Because if I'm meeting your kid, I'm meeting them for the first time ever, and I don't know what they're normally like. And you're looking for change. You're looking for, what do I know about how this young person normally acts or behaves, and what are these differences that I'm seeing? Yeah,
so that's incredibly important and a perspective to kind of think through. I think, Devin, you come in with a perspective that's also truly helpful for kids just kind of advocating for themselves, speaking up, like recognizing these things, and you did it through literature. Can you tell us a little bit more about the book that you wrote? Was it last year?
Yeah, of course. I officially released it in October of 2022 for National Bullying Prevention Month. So I'm also the author of Devin Speaks Up. That is a children's anti-bullying book. It's all about diversity, but it's all about showing a kid what bullying can look like at their age. It talks about race. It also talks about, or really it gives you new vocabulary, such as an upstander. I found there's been countless amounts of times I've spoken to so many different types of age groups. I've spoken to high schoolers, elementary kids, middle school kids, as well as adults, teachers, staff. One thing that surprisingly they don't tend to know is what an upstander is. An upstander is someone who supports the target of bullying. Now, you don't have to go up and be like, okay, stop the bullying, stop the bullying. There's other ways to do it. The online, unfortunately, oftentimes we're talking about cyberbullying, can be used in a negative way, but also can be used in the sense that you can report online. Talking about anonymity, you can report anonymously as well. But going back to Devin Speaks Up, so I wanted to give kids the tools that they can bring into their own schools, or parents that they can read Devin Speaks Up to their kids so that their kids can actually see from my perspective as someone who's gone through in-person bullying as well as cyberbullying, what it can look like. And I'm also saying, you know what? Your skin color, it's beautiful, because like I said, I went through racist bullying. I'm saying I'm having a sense of family in my book too. My family, my mother, my father saying, you know what, we're here for you, Devin, and you know what, your skin color is beautiful. We want you to feel empowered. So we're going to do as much as we can for you. And then also me speaking up on behalf of another person who went through bullying as well.
I love that. I mean, providing the language, providing the opportunity to recognize and understand, and then hopefully kind of building that agency so that they can know that they don't have to just be a victim, but how do I then support when I see this happening? How can I then support anyone who might be receiving this? How do we do that in this gaming space? What can we do as like parents, or even just anyone in that space to kind of support when they see this happening?
So I think a lot of times we misunderstand the interactions in online gaming. I know some people think whenever, your young folks get hyped up, they're raging, they're yelling, they're angry, the trash talk, like it's a very normal thing. And I think that's one of the things where the parents don't understand how to distinguish like harmful speaking like trash talk. We got to allow a range of like trash talk, right? I think it's one of those things of where, going back to, a lot of the work that Devin has done, we have to think about when the harms are occurring. Because most of those groups, they're just going back and forth. They cussing, trash talking. But then it's important for us to, going back to defining the terms, we have to define what is trash talking, what is racism, what is sexism, what is homophobia, what is heterosexism. The young folks need to understand, because I'm thinking about like even, some gendered language, the homophobic language, a lot of the everyday words that are used in that space, some of these kids don't even know that they're harmful, like, the F word in particular. They don't know that that's like a harmful term, related to like certain like populations. So parents need to understand those things. That's another thing I realized, that parents they're not equipped with the knowledge. And so they have to build the capacities so they can help build the capacities like in their young folks so that they can then advocate for themselves inside that space. Because I know a lot of times parents think that the stakeholders, the platforms are protecting your young folks. They are not. They are not. There might be reporting systems in there. So like if you want to report things that are happening, but the systems care about cheating. They don't really care about those individualized harms. They don't really care about the racism and the sexism. They don't care about those things. And I think that's a thing where you can tell how much a platform values based off what you can report inside that platform. So I think some parents take a look in there, say, what can we report? What are the layers here? Where does the reporting go? And then, but on the flip side of that, a lot of these and I'm gonna shut up. I'm so sorry. I'm going too far. I know a lot of folks, they weaponize the reporting system. So let's say if we're in a game, and let's say a team of girls beat some boys. They will go and report those young girls for whatever reason, frivolous reasons, just because they're mad that they got beat by girls. So there are some people that, they weaponize the reporting systems as well. So I know we have Discord, we have Twitch, we have all these platforms that are outside the gaming space that we have to be equipped with the knowledge to know where the harms might come and what might be happening.
My daughter got kicked off for 24 hours on Roblox because she told these girls that they were being mean during some simulator, and then they got her kicked off saying that she was being bullied.
They weaponize the reporting, of course.
Totally, yeah.
They do it.
So
I'm banned right now.
Right? Already there. They're listening
right
too.
Now. I'm banned right now.
Oh no, you're like for real.
I'm
okay.
For real banned right now.
Well, so
it's my fault.
As we're hearing, I mean these platforms weren't designed with well-being in mind, right? They were designed for clearly other reasons, and interaction and attention and all that. Yeah. So, Laura, how do you communicate with some of the different individuals that you support from youth to adults? Like, how do they identify these things? Or like, what are ways to help empower them when they get into these spaces? Any like tips, in that work that you can share?
Yeah, I think, especially because we're talking about parenting, I think it's important to say, if you're a parent, you're really going into this with a sort of like, believe my child mentality, right? What you're bringing to me, I believe you, I want to listen to you, I want to understand what your experience is like and what's going on for you. I want you to, if you're open to it, show me the things that you're, going through. One thing we talk about a lot is there are a lot of apps and that you can't take a screenshot without the other person sort of knowing. So being the parent who says, do you want me to take a photo of that on my phone? Just so that we have it if you ever want to use it. And then spending time with the young person, sort of brainstorming from their point of view, how do they want to approach this situation? You know, if they're bringing to you, like, I feel like I'm being bullied, you can say to them, like, what do you think we should do? Like, what are some options that you've heard about? What have your friends done when you've been in these situations before? And it could be anything from, you know, blocking other people to deleting an app for a while to, you know, potentially talking, if you know another family where if you know the other parents, like, are you open to me talking with them? They might say, no way, you know?
Yeah.
Do you want me to talk to your school? Those kinds of things, having that conversation with them and bringing them in so that they're part of deciding on what the next steps are.
Yeah. I can imagine, though, it can be hard when you put it to practice. And Devin, I know that you do a lot of speaking across all ages. Like, if you were here and you said, okay, we have 2 minutes, what do you want us to know about this space and how to be more mindful in the way that we treat each other, or if, you know, cyberbullying is a topic that you focus on? What are like the 1 or 2 things that you would say, these are the things I hope you all leave with today?
I think first I would give the proper definition of cyberbullying, but first start off with what bullying is. Bullying is the unwanted aggressive behavior aimed at people for a reason. Bullying is not random. I would probably give an example through my own experience or through something that I've seen in the news, because I've seen countless amounts of stories about cyberbullying, unfortunately, in the news. And then I would probably say something in relation to things start with a conversation. Be open to talking about things, and yes, that's easier said than done. It's definitely easier said than done. But think about it this way, and I really am going to be direct because it's just true when I say this. If you don't say anything, if you don't speak up to a trusted adult, if you don't speak up to someone that you do trust, unfortunately, oftentimes it will go down an even darker hole, one that you won't be able to climb out of, one that you will definitely need a lot of help to get out of. We don't want to go through, of course, no one wants to go through bullying, but once it does start, unfortunately, oftentimes it's gonna have to be in your hands to tell a trusted someone or find that upstander in your life who can help you, because sometimes things do take a team. Having that support, it does encourage people. You know, like how having this support for bullies supporting each other, that encourages stuff. Well, why don't people who are wanting to help each other, supporting each other, that could lead to the one who's going, or the multiple people who are going through bullying to actually speak up. So support, communication, and actually understanding what cyberbullying is. Those are the main things that I would say. And also one more thing.
Please.
I would say to race to speak up against bullying. I always say that it's my motto, it's the name of my workshops. But with race to speak up, it means we all need to hurry up and speak up when we're going through bullying, but also we are all a part of one race, which is the human race. So,
Awesome. All right, so we've got a couple more minutes left. So Kishana, a quick question for you. Devin was talking about how does it show up? How do we define this? When do we know, especially what you mentioned, understanding the context of when we're in gaming or even these kinds of spaces, like what does crossing the line look like? Or how do you really talk about being recognizing when you might have crossed that line?
I wish there was an easy answer for you. I really do. And
I'm
I wish
looking
I had
for
some
everything
quick,
today.
I know you are. But also, this goes back to what Dr. Laura was saying. You have to understand your kids. Some kids, they aggressive, they cussing, and their whole friend group is that. So it's not harmful. It's kind of like the dozens. I know there was like, especially when a lot of people read, for instance, like Black and brown youth in particular, you know, they enter like the dozens, a lot of cracking and roasting and joning. Now that's okay in that setting, but in another setting where kids don't grow up in that way, that might not be like normal, like in that kind of context. So you really got to understand your kids. You got to understand the context. You have to have a relationship so then you can understand and hear the things that are happening in that space.
Pay attention, know your kids, understand the context, all really important. We got like under a minute. What's the last thing you want to leave our audience with?
I'm going to live, I don't know.
No, we're going to go with Laura. Laura first. We're going to end with you. Laura first. What's the last thing you want to leave the audience with?
Well, I would say we don't have a ton of time, but you know, the young people who are bullying other young people are also a focus that we need to look at. And I think what Devin's saying about being upstanders, I think that's like really, I mean, many young people do end up in that situation and they're going through something really difficult themselves. And if you look at, if you look at research, young people who are bullying other young people are also at increased risk of mental health issues and suicidality.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to have, again, those conversations. If you find out that your child is bullying other children, there's something going on with them. There's something that you need to sort of like talk with them about, listen to them. Again, why are you doing this? What happened? What put you in this situation? So I just wanted to bring up the flip side of it.
Well, and with that, it means we are all in this together. We should try to understand all the perspectives going into this, understand the context and the experiences, and know that there are allies and people that we can turn to, our youth, but especially also our allies here on the stage. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marv. Give it up for Marv.